And welcome back, guys. I don't have my camera on here, so it'll be clearer to see what's going on. But hopefully, you guys have been able to follow along without too much issues. I can't say any issues. Usually, there will be a little thing here and there. Then you find out it's like something simple that you miss. So definitely utilize the Discord. Shoot me out a message. Take a screenshot. Let me see what's going on. But in this video, we're gonna be making the character jump. If you guys remember, we can turn left and right. We can move forward and backwards. We can basically we also have the camera parented, right? Parented to the mouse. So the camera is a child of the mouse. So as the mouse moves, right? Our little mouse guy, as he moves, the camera moves with him. That's all happening right here. You can see the mouse is the main group. We expand it. We see the camera in here. Main camera is inside here based on the indentation. The little triangle here also shows you that there's more things inside of this group here called skeleton. So there's a lot of stacking of group stuff going on here. That's common. Now we're going to make this guy move, which we're going to hop back into the script. Script is right here in my codes folder. But if we were in some other folder and we're trying to find it, remember that we put it on the mouse. So we could also find it right here. And if you click on the name right here where it says script and just click on the name, boom, it locates it here for you as well. So keep that in mind, a little shortcut. Then I can just double click on the script right here, or I can even double click on it right here, boom, boom, and it will open up the script for us, okay? Let's go ahead and make this guy be able to jump. We're gonna see if we can jump on top of that little cube that we have there. Just took a sip of this coffee. Delicious. Not really. It's actually pretty gross. Anyways, notice something really detailed here, really good for us to understand. Is remember everything is like it's like a group in section here. The code, right, begins at the open curly bracer. You can see if I collapse the code, all of it disappear. If I open it back up, right, the open curly bracer ends at the closing curly braces. So if I make some space right about here, boom, 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 and I go down to the bottom here and make some space, boom, 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 I want you to kind of see it now better, right? It starts here, ends here, and this is everything in between, right? That code. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to make sure we stay within this code, but not necessarily within the update, right? Because we've already made four lines of code, and they're all inside of this update box, right? Because this one starts here and ends here. Everything in between is inside of the box called update. There's nothing inside of the start. So I'm going to remove the unnecessary space I've just made. That was just to show you. But we're going to make some space right here, right? Right here. And if you're having difficulties with that, right, you just click right in front of the curly bracer right here. In front of it, press enter, boom, and we're there. Make space right here, and we're going to make a variable, right? We're going to make a variable here because if we made a variable inside here, in a sense, it only exists inside of this box. But if we made one outside, it's more of a public, it's more of a global variable. That means that the start function will be able to use the variable, and the update will be able to use the variable because it's kind of like it's in the open. It's kind of like parking a car in a garage or parking a car outside a garage. Then the neighbors can see it. Everyone that passed your house can see it. But if you park it in your garage, then only you can see it because you can probably access the garage from inside your house. So think about it kind of like that. So with the variables, we want this variable to be a global variable. So we're going to type float, right, which is a type of number. You can see that these two were also floats, right? So you declare the type, then you give it a name. I'm going to give this the name jump force, like so. And then I might assign something like 150 to it, and then just put semicolon right there, okay? So the type, the name, and then assignment, assign it to something else. Go ahead and type this out. And then look at my example real quick. You don't have to do this, but check this out. I could also create the variable, right? And then when the game starts, then assign the value like so, right? So I won't have to mention float again because it's created first without being assigned a value, and then we assign a value to it later. That's something we can do conditionally. So basically, if we need to do something like that, that's something we can do. But for right now, jump force and just assign a value to it. So the jump force is now a type of number, which is a float, and it has the value of 150. All right. So keep in mind variables, guys. If I ask you an equation where I ask you, hey, what is 4 plus r? Oh, it auto completed there on me. There we go. I just put r. No, not random. Okay, I'll put x. It's probably gonna do the same thing. I'll do this. There you go. Just click off r. Boom. Equal. What does this equal? If you guessed a number, you're wrong. But if you simply said I don't know, then you're right. If you said I don't know, you're right. And that's because this is undefined. Even if I mouse over it, kind of tell you a little bit, saying that the name R does not exist. So it's undefined. But if I said something like R, let me try to click off and do it again, equals 4, or let's say 2, yeah, then this equation, you can easily answer it with 6. See? So this is how you would see things in math. As you level up in your math, you're going to be seeing things like this in school. You might already be seeing it. This is a variable. R becomes a variable. And we could have made R whatever letter we want, or even a word, whatever we want it to be. We simply give it a name, assign a value to it. Same thing we did with jump force. Okay? Only in coding. Unlike Python, you do have to declare that it's what type of value it is. So I cannot say jump force equals something like Frank, right? Because Frank would then be a word, but I've already declared that it is a type of number. So now it's incorrect. If I said it was a word, which is a string, then we'll be good to go. See? So now it's okay being Frank because I said jump force is a type of word, a type of text, which in coding is called string. Okay? All right. Now that you understand that, hopefully you did. We're going back straight to the 150. Like I said, that was just an example. I didn't expect you to type the example stuff. So keep it, float, jump force equals 150, and let's move forward. We have a jump force. Now the way that jumping works is your legs will then push your body off the ground. Gravity will bring you back down. Same deal we're going to do here. We're going to look for when we press space, add a force, which is our 150, our jump force, and send us up. Send the character up. And the character already has Rigidbody, which uses gravity, and that should take care of bringing us back down. All right, so we're going to go down a couple lines here inside the update, and we are going to check for if we're pressing space. The reason we're doing it in the update is because the update is a good way to make the character, make the computer listen. Because if we check here if we're pressing space, then when the game starts, it's going to check to see if we're pressing space. And then a second later, it's not going to do that again. So if we press space right as the game starts, it will work. But then after that, it won't work because it only check once. So we're going to need it to continuously listen and continuously check for when that user press space. And the second we press space, it does the jump. So that's why we have to put it in the update where everything is continuously happening, right? So check if we press space. We just tell the computer if we're pressing space. So just like in English, if, an if condition, right? An if condition, and you have to put an open and close parentheses here after you write if, and then we're gonna search for that input that is saying we're pressing space. So The keyword here is input with a capital I. And then we're going to see if it's possible to get a key press. To get a certain key or a certain button was pressed down. So here's a get key down command, right? And this will tell us whether or not a certain key is pressed down. And we're going to check for a certain key to see if that key is pressed down. So I'm just going to write key code dot, right? Key code here, dot, and then space. All right, so understand the logic here. Let me just make some space between it. You don't have to do this. I'll make some space so you see it correctly. The if condition, your if has an open and a close in parentheses. As you can see here, it's a closing, and over here is the open. Then in between it, you should put something that is possible to happen, some sort of true or false. So this here is a true or false. It's a little input that will scan and see if we're pressing a certain key by the key code. And then we're checking for the key code space. We got to tell it which key code we want to listen for. If that space is pressed, guess what? This entire code here is reflected as true, basically. So when that space is pressed, this becomes true. When it's not, all of it will then be referred to as false. So the way if condition work is basically whenever the thing inside of it is true, it will follow along with the rest of the code. So now we make the body of the if condition, right? This is just a condition, but what needs to happen when the condition is true goes into a body. Remember how we made all these bodies, like the start function, open and close parentheses, update function, open and close parentheses. So we got to do one right here. Boom, just like so. And there it is. Keep in mind though, the body doesn't have to be below it. That's just visually more appealing, right? You could have the body right here and then your code in between it, blah, 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 right? As long as there's the open and then the closing, everything in between will work just the same. It's just a little bit more visually appealing when it's down below it. Just easier to look at, I should say. Easier to look at. So I'm gonna go ahead and just bring it back down just by creating here. Boom, enter, and bring it back down here. Some extra space here I'm gonna remove. So basically, whenever you press space, whatever code goes in here will run. Let's just print to see if it's working. So print will just log something out on the console, and I'm just gonna print the word chew back. No. We're gonna print the word. We're gonna print the word pow. Why not? Pow. Oops. And then semicolon right at the end. All right. Save it. Let's head back into Unity and see if this is actually working. All right. We just want to see that it's detected that we're pressing the button. So here's a console log right here. Make sure it's clear, and I'm gonna press play. Now that the game is playing, I can still move around, okay? But I'm gonna watch the console log right over here, and I'm about to hit space right now. And it says pow, nice. Space, 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 space. And it's working. So it is definitely listening for when I press space. So now, all I gotta do is add some force in the upwards position, and gravity should bring it back down to take care of the rest for us. So let's do it. One thing you wanna know is that the rigid body is how we're going to add force. We're going to make the rigid body add force. Rigid body can do that. Rigid body is pretty cool at doing that. So in order to add force using the rigid body, because the rigid body is that physics component that's on the player, the rigid body can add many different style of force: explosion force, force at a certain point, all that stuff. We're going to be using a command called add force from the rigid body. So seeing how this script, right, is right here on the same mouse that has the rigid body, it's very easy for the script to talk to the rigid body because they're on the same game object, which is the mouse. You can see that they're all on the same game object, this little guy. So Super easy for the code to then talk to the rigid body, say, hey, rigid body, I want you to add some force using this amount of number in the upwards position, and that's it. Gravity will take care of the rest. So we say get component, right? Because everything on the player, all of this is referred to as components. We can add more components, right? See the word? See the name? Add component. The script is considered component because on him, capsule collider, rigid body, transform, all of this is considered component. So we're going to say, hey, I want to get a component. And this command will get a component that is attached to the same game object. And the component we want to get goes in between the two sideways triangles here, the less than and more than triangles. And we're going to say rigid body, spelled exactly how it's spelled here on the player, rigid body, right? Let me just move this over. I can make this window a little bit smaller as well. All right. Get component, rigid body. After that, it requires a little open and close parenthesis. Nothing goes inside the parenthesis, but it's required. Then, this means I have now access to rigid body. So I can now use a little dot to do something with the rigid body. So here's a lot of cool stuff the rigid body can do. Like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of different ways the rigid body can add force. Add force at a certain position, explosion force. We can even add some sort of torque, which is perfect for like wheels and things that rotate. But we're going to use a simple one that says add force, this one. So we're going to use that one. Then open and close parentheses. Feel free to type this out if your IntelliSense didn't pop up. Right, this little pop-up suggestion is your IntelliSense. So feel free to type it out if yours isn't set up to auto like complete and pop up. So now we're telling us to add force. What we got to do now is give it the direction right here, vector 3. Remember what the vector 3 is, the 3 coordinates, x, y, and z. We got to tell which direction to add force. So a simple little cheat here is to simply say vector 3 dot up. And instead of, giving it, I'm going to give it like 0 for x, and then a value for y, which is up and down, and then another 0 for z. So it only targets the up. Instead of doing that, we just use a short code and say up. Right? You can end the code here with a semicolon, but we're not done. Do let me explain what it's missing. We got to tell which direction. But we have to give it all 3 directions, right? So we have to tell it which direction, but we still have to give it all 3. We have to give it the x, y, and the z, and the direction that we don't want to use, that we don't want to add any force to, just remain it at 0. Just like how in the rotation here, we had to give it all 3 rotations, but except we're just giving it the rotation. We're just changing the value off the rotation we want to affect. It's the same deal here. And the vector 3 dot up is basically a shorthand code for writing 0 for the x, 1 for the y, and then 0 for the z. So y is our up and down. So this will make us go up. Now, how much force? That's where the jump force variable we made comes in. So we just simply put the time symbols here, which is a little asterisk. So that the certain direction we want to add force times our jump force variable. And there it is. This command now will access the rigid body, add force in the upwards position, times the jump force that we gave it, which is 150, which might be a little bit too much, but we're going to find out. After that, you save. Hopefully that made sense to you, because it's time. It's time to test. We hit save. Don't forget to save. Head back into Unity, and I'll press space. Boom. All right. So 150 was low. Not enough to really get us high enough off the ground. One thing you will notice, though, is that our logic says when we press space, add force upwards. Yeah, when I press space once, it adds force and gravity brings it back down. But if I just kept pressing space, you can see that that is also a thing we can do. I can make him hover by just Spamming on the space button. Oh, almost made it. Oh, come on, just a little bit further. There we go. That's not intended to be the design though. We do want him to be able to jump and not like triple, double, quadruple jump as long as we're pressing space. But you want things to work before you make them work properly. Okay, so that works, but we will then want to make it work properly, which is what we'll do a little bit later in our next video. But we can see here that 150 is not enough to bring him above the ground or above the platform, the little box we want to jump onto. So we want to turn that up. And the last thing I want to show you is increasing this value. I know you can just come right in here and be like, okay, maybe 250, and then hit save and then head back into Unity. And you can probably try that. But there's a problem with how we're working there. So just hit it maybe once, right? And see if it will work. Yeah, 250 actually works for me, right? So you just got to discipline yourself to not spam the button because you know you can, and that would be cheating, but you know it works. So the problem with how we're working there is that we have to come back into here and adjust this number. You never know if it's going to be too high or too small. So here is one thing we can do, guys, is we can put right here in front of this word float, we put public and then the space, right? Public, as I as I find my words here, public will allow this variable jump force to be accessible in other codes, right? We don't have any other codes. That's from another project. But if we had other codes that may be some sort of power up that allows the player to jump higher, public would allow us to be able to access this variable and change it from other scripts. That's not all. This is the cool part I want to show you. Now that it's public, you click on the mouse and you go right here where the script is and you can see it actually shows up, jump force. So what does this do? Hey, I can just change it from right here. We don't have to go back into the script every second. And we can just make our changes right here and actually test it out. Be like, okay, 150 wasn't enough. How about 180? You'd be like, okay, that's not enough either. Let me slowly crank it up to the number that I feel is doable until you reach, yeah? And you'd be like, okay, I like that. That seems about right. And then once you reach that value, you know 280 is what you're looking for. Keep in mind I made some changes to it while it was playing, so those changes don't stay. But I remember that number was 280, and now when I put it as 280 before I hit play, it will then stay 280. Keep in mind it doesn't change the code, right? But the 250 that's written here is overwritten by whatever you write inside of the inspector in here in Unity. So this becomes simply a default. So if we had nothing written there, it will default to the 250. But I've already written something here. So now basically we're overriding whatever goes in there, okay? So it will default to the 250 if we wrote nothing there. Just a quick way to show you what I mean is I'll make a second one and I'll call it just Jump Force 3. We're not going to use it. It's just an example. Hit save. And see, this one that shows up has the 250 because we haven't written anything there. But as long as we mess with it and change it, it will then be our new value. All right, so we'll just get rid of that. Guys, hopefully, hopefully you were patient enough with me with this drawn out explanation, but do understand this is a jump-in tutorial for beginners and all levels. So if you already knew a lot of what I was saying, then great. Hopefully it was still helpful to you. But this yeah, this can wrap this up. And in the next video in this course, we're gonna look at making the jump a little bit more robust, a little bit more logical. Because right now, as you already know, we got jumps for days. We can jump for a long time. Anyways, catch you in the next one, guys. Thank you for checking this one out. I'll see you in the next one.